So we're going to talk a little bit about the Battle for Zendikar spoiler. I'm not going to really cover in depth all of the sweet mythics and stuff. Me and Brad will do that a little bit later. But I do want to talk about a very important uncommon and kind of how it shapes what we can expect from Battle for Zendikar. Now, Battle for Zendikar has not that many spoilers. I think it's like 51 or 52 total. But one specific uncommon, which we're going to go to right now, will tell us quite a bit about the format and what it needs. Rolling Thunder is X red sorcery. Rolling Thunder deals X damage divided as you choose among any number of target creatures and or players. Now, this has been printed before as a common in Tempest, which was far too low. It was a card that completely dominated the format. When they did Tempest Remaster Online, they made it a rare. Now, it's an uncommon here, and that's an interesting spot for it to be in, because the uncommons and commons are what shape a limited format. Rolling Thunder as an uncommon kind of denotes that you need removal that can go big. In the original Rise for Eldrazi, we had Heat Ray, which is X red instant deal X damage target creature. You can kill the Eldrazi, maybe not efficiently, but always. And at any point in the curve, it could be useful. Rolling Thunder is better than this. For one single extra red, you can kill your opponent. But more importantly than that, the removal goes tall to handle things like Eldrazi, but it also goes wide to handle multiple creatures. And we'll see commons and uncommons with the new Eldrazi spawn, which are called Eldrazi Scions, and they're 1/1s with sacrifice for colorless mana. That's a lot more powerful. So the point of Rolling Thunder not existing as just a random red X spell that was rare is that it is an essential part of what's needed to not answer just big threats. Like cards like Vendetta were in the original Rise of Eldrazi, or we could have like a Doomblade, etc., etc., etc. We need something that can deal with multiple threats at the same time. And Rolling Thunder is one of the unique cards that can do that over here. We'll go through most of the commons and uncommons and kind of just glance at them. But with a card like Rolling Thunder, they don't reprint it lightly. This is an extremely powerful card. In a lot of formats, it would be much too powerful. For instance, if they reprinted Rolling Thunder in Origins, which is dominated by creatures with 1 and 2 toughness, it would almost always be this excellent card. The worst case scenario for Rolling Thunder is you pay 3 or 4 mana to kill a creature. That's not very good. But as soon as you get into the 5 to 6 mana range, you're killing usually multiple creatures for 1 card. Sometimes just 1 big creature. And from the 7+ range, you're usually killing 3, 4, 5 creatures, sometimes 1 large creature, 1 small creature, and all this is just assuming that you don't just go directly to someone's face and kill them, since you can target players and creatures, right? If your opponent has 6/6 and you have 10 total mana, 2 for the cost, 6 goes to your opponent's creature, and that's 2 to their face, which is, you know, not amazing, but the flexibility and the flexibility is what makes this card pass quite good. Overly powerful in many cases. All right, let's take a quick peek. Now, the next thing I want to look for is actually the colorless cards here, and let's see if they have them. Oh, they don't have the colorless cards listed here, but they do have an important another artifact. And this is kind of shifting over towards Rise of Eldrazi is going to play, or sorry, Battle for Zendikar is going to play out similar to Rise of Eldrazi, is what I'm thinking, because they're pushing things like good colorless artifacts that give us mana, things like Rolling Thunder to use them efficiently, 4, tap 2, or tap to add 2 colors to your mana pool, pay 2 to sack it, and draw 2 cards. So the utility here is a card that you can put in any deck, but it's pushing you towards ramping up, and then having an abundance of ramp in your deck that you would like to use the utility of sacrificing this card frequently. There are the new lands, which are exciting. We'll talk more about them later. The new sets of basic land type with a downside, the new set of dual lands, and new set of creature lands coming out, and the Battlefield Expeditions, which are the super rare cards and all that. We'll cover a little bit more of that in depth when we go to the actual review itself. We've got our 3 sweet Planeswalkers, which we'll talk a little bit more later. Where are my colorless cards? Oh, can I not? Alright, we'll have to do it this way. I think spoilers are a little bit awkward sometimes. Alright. Yep. here are our colorless cards. Now we're going to talk about the mythics and what. I do want to say that Annihilator is out. We can tell by Ulamog, who would be the flagship card with Annihilator, that we're not getting Annihilator. We're getting the Exile, Ingest, and Processor kind of cycle, and we'll talk about that, which has to do with the Exile zone, and that's kind of exciting. Oh, I can't read it in Japanese very well. I don't have to read that card, though. So we've got... let's see if we can get a good point on this. Cards with Devoid, which they have a colored symbol in their mana cost, but Devoid means they have no color. They have no color in any zones. In your library, graveyard, exile, hand, everywhere they're colorless. So if you have a card that says reveal a colorless card, you can reveal Skitterskin, even though it has black in its mana cost because of Devoid. And that plays importantly with the colorless theme that runs through this. There's a lot of colorless matters cards, but also flavorfully, they found a way to restrict the limited environment. The color requirements are more important for limited, so you can't have all these just generally powerful cards. The fact that Skitterskin does cost a black mana means that you do need to be in a black deck, but flavorfully and mechanically, it's a colorless card, which is an identifier of the Eldrazi. So that's a nice little bonus there. On Drowner of Hope, we see Devoid as well, using Eldrazi Scion as sacrifice outlets, and producing multiples, right? This is a 6-mana card for 5/5, and gives you 2 colorless sources of mana. So you're going bigger, and we see this at Breaker of Arm using an uncommon. 8 for a 10/8. Now that's above rate. You wouldn't normally pay that, because it's not particularly exciting in many ways just to have that big of a body at that point. You're better off having a 7-mana 7/7 than an 8-mana 10/8. In most sets. In this set, getting to 8 probably isn't going to be nearly as hard. We saw the cards like the Hedron before, and we'll probably see more cards that produce early Scions for you to sacrifice. An interesting ability, all creatures able to block Breaker of Armies do so. That means that we're going to have cards that can deal with this on a one-on-one basis. This isn't going to be an always blowout card, but sometimes it will. Allies is a returning strategy, and a card like Breaker of Armies is going to be great against that. And at that common, we know we're going to get a lot of powerful cards that demand to be played. Right? This isn't a rare that you can only sometimes play, and it's not the only big card we see at uncommon. We'll go past. We'll come back up to Converge and Awaken in a moment. There's more big colorless cards, right? We have cards like Blight Her, which is a 4/5 for 5, which is not particularly exciting, but it does have Processor, which means it takes something out of exile zone of your opponent and gives you something back. In this case, when you exile 2 cards from your opponent's when you take 2 cards from exile and put them in your opponent's graveyard, you get an effect. And this one is 3/1/1 Eldrazi Scions, and they have 1 sacrifice and 1 mana. That's implying a lot of mana. This is turn 5, which means you have 5 lands. Turn 6, you have 6 lands, hopefully, or that's kind of the feeling behind it. And that means you're playing an 8 or 9 cost spell, and they expect you to frequently do that. Now, this is a rare, so you're not going to see it a lot, but we saw other rares with the same kind of sacrifice to make more tokens. We have some drones, and the drones make 1/1s, right? This is 4 for a 2/3, Devoid, and enters the battlefield, put a 1/1 colorless Eldrazi token, right? And again, this Devoid here is to make sure that each color has it. I expect the green or red or other colors to maybe have more efficient drones to produce quicker or better power and toughness for their stats, etc. Like paying for essentially 3-4 bodies across 2, or 3 powered 4 toughness against 2 bodies is pretty good. And at common, this means that we can expect to get quite a few cards that cost a lot of mana. Also, the fact that blue gets essentially a 3/4/4 is really good. I think it means that things like a 2/3 are not going to be particularly good in this set. That the size of other creatures is going to outweigh that quite a bit. We've got Mist Intruder, which is, showing off the ingest mechanic. I'm probably thinking Mist Intruder is not going to be very good. I don't think 1/2 for 2 flying is going to be good enough, but it's showing off the ingest mechanic, which is going to play synergistically with our processor cards. Not sure how many we're going to get, but we know we at least have some rare ones. I'm expecting to see them at uncommon at the very least. And it'll be interesting if we have any common in processors as well. Kind of high upside cards in there. One of the most exciting commons, and it's very powerful, is Kozilek's Channeler. It's 5 for a 4/4 colorless. Now, that at its base is a pretty good card. We've seen 6 for a 4/4 flying, and consider that solid. And that's been an uncommon. This is 5 for a 4/4. That's already a playable card that you'd be excited to have in a lot of colors. And the fact that it's common and adds 2 mana makes me think that mana is going to be an essential thing, not just at 5. That they expect many games to go to 7 to 10 mana, and you need to be able to get there consistently. You're going to be playing big, powerful spells. But with our Scions being 1/1s, it also means that you can't just neglect that and only go into ramp. Kozilek's Channeler and Rolling Thunder stand out as these cards that are going to help shape the format, kind of describing cards that go bigger than a 4/4, but at the same time you have to deal with a 4/4. It's a 5-turn clock by itself. Let's see if there's anything other. Right, we've got our kind of replacement for Kozilek or Ulamog's Crusher last time, which is Eldrazi Devastator. It's just 8 for an 8/9 trample. That does a lot of work. If you can get to that, you need to be answering that. And it being common, it means anyone can have access to it. We're going to see things like Incubator Drone, which we didn't see in the first Rise of Eldrazi, is blue having access to a lot of ramp. We haven't seen the green ones yet, but expect the green drones to be the best, probably then followed by red and maybe some black. Let's see if there's any other particularly cards. We see some aggressive cards. This is Dominator Drone. 2 colors black for 3/2 with Devoid and Ingest, which I think are just keywords we're going to see a lot. I don't think you're paying for the Ingest or the Devoid. They come on free. When it enters the battlefield, if you control another colorless creature, even if they have a colored mana, if they have Devoid, they're colorless, each opponent loses 2 life. That's an aggressive card. You can build an aggressive shell if we have to see a lot of cards like this. So we have things like Eldrazi Devastator on the one end, right, representing Rise of Eldrazi. Things like Dominator Drone on the other end, representing something a little closer to the original Zendikar, which was very fast. And the format needs cards that can answer both. And that goes back to Rolling Thunder. Rolling Thunder answers big cards like Eldrazi Devastator. Yeah, it costs 11 mana, but your opponent plays 8 drops. You have things like Kozilek's Channeler. 11 mana is not too far off. Yeah, Ron. We haven't seen many of the burn cards. Usually the burn cards do serve the specific function of dealing 2 to 3 damage to answer the frequent threats. And one of the big points is Rolling Thunder is there to answer Eldrazi Devastator and Dominator Drone, right? It has the flexibility to act as both. I don't think that Rolling Thunder is likely to be a constructed playable card. You might see 1 in sideboards or 1 in main decks, just because it takes advantage of mana so well. But it's not a very efficient card. It's not an exciting card for Standard. But to me, it's one of the most exciting cards I've seen in Limited in a long, long time, because the game designers know what Rolling Thunder means. They know what's going to happen when they print that card. It's not uncharted waters. It's not an accident that they printed a card with that level of power. It's intentional. And we also have cards like Titan's Presence, which makes me think we're going to have plenty of colorless cards to kind of take advantage of this as an uncommon. This would be a rare if it wasn't made for the limited aspect. Just because it's kind of a useless card if it's not working with another card. 3 colorless instant as an additional cost. Reveal a colorless creature, which includes creatures with the Void. From your hand, exile target creature if its power is less than or equal to the real card's power. Fairly unconditional removal, but you have to have colorless creatures in your deck. I think in Limited that's not going to be too hard. I think we're going to see... We haven't seen a lot of the creatures, right? We haven't seen a lot of the allies. We've seen 1 or 2, but there's going to be common allies. We're just seeing a lot of the Eldrazi because they're exciting at first. Your deck is going to be probably not even monocolored. We're seeing a lot of multicolored cards, but mono, dual, there's a chance that this set could support triple colors if we see the uncommon and common lands to support it as well. So your Eldrazi will be in multiple colors. Your Kozilek's Channelers will be playing alongside Incubator Drones and maybe Dominator Drones in the same deck. I'm not confident to really speak on that yet until we see what comes out. But again, we're less than a fifth away through the set. So yeah, there's a lot of exciting cards. There's a lot of exciting rares, a lot of exciting mythics. We'll be talking about that Oh, Ronnie is talking about, yeah, for standard, the pools are getting smaller. And one thing Ronnie to remember is that we're going from very large sets to much, much smaller sets. When when Battle for Zendikar comes in, we're losing 4 sets. We're losing Magic 2015, and then all of Theros block. And we're only getting 1 in response. So it'll be a smaller set. And then when we go Battle for Zendikar, the next set, and then we go back to Dominaria, it's just going to be the 2. We're going to have smaller sets. That means things like high-density synergy-based decks, essentially burn decks, are going to be harder to make. They're going to be less potent. They'll be in less potent fields, but I think Red Burn as a deck will be one of the decks that kind of falls out of favor overall with the smaller block structure. We still will have red aggressive decks. They just won't be primarily burn decks. So we'll see what comes in when it doesn't. But it's also important to remember that those red decks gain a lot because everyone else loses a lot of their bigger power and better small drops. So it's a fairly even trade for red aggressive decks. There is no real red burn deck in a smaller set just because there's not a high enough density of red burn cards. I want to talk about Awaken. So this is one of the other key abilities. I think it's one of the cooler abilities. It's kind of their new version of Lands Matter a Lot. And essentially, when you cast this spell, you may pay the additional cost, right? So you can either pay 3 or 6 for this. If you pay 3, you just destroy target tapped creature. If you pay 6, you have the same timing conditions, so it's still a sorcery. You destroy target tapped creature. And you also put 3/1/1 counters on target lane you control. It becomes a 0/0 elemental. With the counters, it obviously gets more, so it's a 3/3. And it controls haste. It's still a land. So you get permanent creature land cards. With your Awaken cards, and we also have Landfall's Return as well, you're going to want to play lands. If you're not already playing or thinking about playing 18 lands, we will be playing 18 lands every time in this format for almost all of the times. In Zendikar, that was the case, and it was an extremely aggressive format just because of the strength of Landfall. I think between Awaken and Landfall, you can expect to be throwing around quite a few lands in your decks, which, you know, will get you into the bad habit of playing the correct amount of lands. If you're skimping around 16 or 15s pretty often, that's rarely correct. I don't think there was anything else I wanted to particularly talk about. I think that was mostly it. Landfall's Return is nice, and also we see a couple cards with specific landfall. Now that was on a rare, and the specific landfall cards might all be rares, but it'd be cool if we saw a set of uncommons as well, where it did more if your land was a island or etc. etc. But we have a set of enchantment landfalls. There's one other one we saw, but the enchantment landfalls kind of represent an interesting thing where if you pay, you want to play them the turn where you can landfall, if you would rather. I think of this as a 5-drop with an effect, more than a 4-drop and then waiting a turn. You can do it either way. It's just not quite as effective. And neither of these effects are worth 4 mana, but when you get them every turn, they quickly do that. Ronnie, the manlands, the enemy-colored manlands are exciting. The one we have right now, we'll go look at that real quick. Whoa, did I pass it? Yeah. Is Lumbering Falls, which is kind of a cool name for the land anyway. Just like the old ones, they enter the battlefield tapped. They produce 2 colors of mana, and the activation costs both colors of mana. This one costs 2 green blue, and it becomes a 3/3 blue-green elemental with hexproof. It's still land. I think this is one of the more deceptively powerful ones. Just being a 3/3 doesn't seem that great, but lands traditionally avoid sweepers, so your opponent can't Wrath of God it, or etc., etc., which is normally how you deal with creatures with hexproof. This card basically demands to be blocked, and that's it. You don't really have other ways to kill it. You can't target it with removal, right? There's not things that you can throw down just to kill it. It can't be Murderous Cut or Hero's Downfall because it has hexproof. It can't be countered because it's a land, and you can't Wrath it because you're not usually activating it on your turn, or your opponent's turn, usually activating your turn, so your opponent has to have a creature to deal with it. And if you awaken it, they can Wrath it because it is permanently a creature. But if you don't think your opponent has those abilities, you can always activate 2 colors green blue to give its base power and toughness 3/3. So let's say it has Awaken 3. It has 3 counters on it. Then the 3 more, it's a 6/6. And then with Hexproof, it can prevent your opponent from targeting it. We'll see what the other mana lands do. I expect them to be competitive. I'm not sure if any will be quite as good as something like Celestial Colonnade. But Lumbering Falls, them being willing to push the boundaries with a Hexproof land is pretty exciting. There's a lot of other cool mythics and rares we see at the beginning of these cycles. We'll talk more about them as it fleshes out. We can have a better idea of what it really means for that. But we are seeing a decent amount of kind of strong ramp elements. But there are cards like Gideon's Reproach for a colorless and a white. It deals 4 damage to target attacking or blocking creature. That suggests a set where there's not that huge of creatures. This isn't going to deal with a lot of stuff. So you're going to need more than one card often to deal with the Eldrazi threats. I expect us to see a way to deal with really big threats, one of in each color at least. But we'll have to wait for the spoilers for those really to come out. We've got our other landfall cards, aggressive landfall cards like Scythe Leopard. Not sure if that's going to be playable or not. We'll see. It's really hard to make really informed pinpoint sort of predictions based on just a fifth of the total cards out. Oh, and there's one more ability I want to talk about. I almost missed it. Converge, which is cool. I like this ability a lot. It's 2 colors and a red. And Converge, Radiant Flames, deals X damage to each creature, where X is the number of colors spent on it to cast it. So it's kind of taking this fire spout idea from everything. And we saw other Converge cards. And I think they're really nifty. They're wanting to play played in at least 2 color decks to be at all efficient. Paying, 2 colorless and then red or green or whatever other color you're playing, or 2 colors and a colorless to play something like this is a power flag. Pyroclasm's fine, especially when you can decide if you want it to do 1 or 2 damage. And it's even better when it's like in a 3 color deck. We saw one somewhere with 3 colorless and then a blue and a green. Which means if you pay 3 other colors, you can cast lots of different 5-drops. It casts a card from your deck. So this set looks to have a lot of potential for constructed, but for limited, they're really trying to outdo Rise of Eldrazi, which was considered the best or second best draft set ever created by most people that do a lot of drafts. I myself prefer Innistrad a little bit, but they're like neck and neck. They're right there. It's just 2 amazing sets. Yeah, we'll talk more about these sweet Planeswalkers, Ulamog, all these really big, exciting cards. The implications of another set of Enter the Battlefield dual lands. And remember, for a short time, you'll be able to fetch these in Standard. Standard for 3 months is going to be just super crazy. They're going to one last big hurrah when we have a bigger Standard. And for 3 months, you can play anything you want. You can fetch any of these lands. Everything goes. So that's going to be pretty sweet. But yeah, we're going to cover a little bit more on that. Me and Ash are finishing up the setup at our house. We got the desks moved and we're finalizing that, so hopefully we'll have more content coming out to you guys. Not just Magic content. Remember that me and Ash will be focusing a little bit more on regular gaming content, but she does play Magic as well, so that might come along if you guys want to see it from more of a novice kind of standpoint. She hasn't played that long. She's played maybe a month or 2. She's doing pretty well. And me and Brad are going to start streaming a little bit more frequently. As you guys can tell behind me, I'm at Brad's house, and the good news is he's recovering from his wounds, but we saved him from the terrible ninjas. So he will be back, and we will be back tomorrow or Wednesday. Mobius